Hey folks, Ira here, and today we're rolling up our sleeves and getting into the guts of Adventureworks2022, specifically the production schema. So, this isn't just another inventory table or list of parts. There's a story in the blanks, the clusters, even the redundancy. When you start poking around, you notice instantly. Color field, for example, pops up as null like 248 times. And if you're used to profiling manufacturing data or honestly any kind of retail product data, that can set off some alarms, right? But here's the thing. Sometimes missing data means it genuinely doesn't apply, like an accessory or a part that just doesn't come in any color. Still, you always have to ask, is this a gap or just a quirk? Actually reminds me, years ago I was deep into this data profiling project for a manufacturer, and we found these weird, dense clusters of nulls in otherwise critical columns. At first, the ops team was like, that's just how the data comes in, move along. But digging into it, we actually uncovered a lapsed process around tracking production batches. Those nulls basically spotlighted exactly where the team had stopped following their own data governance. So, I'm a big believer in not just glossing over stuff like that. Now, looping back, AdventureWorks products don't just have missing color. Size is also no about 293 times. It's the same pattern you see with weight unit measure code too. But the flip side? Cell statements is super clustered. April 30, 2008, 12 a.m. comes up 211 times. That suggests either a big launch or, more likely, a bulk data migration. I always like to check. Was that a system upgrade day? New SKUs added en masse? These date pileups tend to hint at something major happening, either in the real world or just someone with too much SQL access on a Friday afternoon, The work order table is a real gem if you care about manufacturing efficiency. You look there, scrapped coupon is 0 for almost every single work order, which, on the surface that sounds amazing for quality control. But anytime you see a value barely budge, you think, is this really perfect, or just a field nobody actually fills out? And then, in work order routing, you get these super strong correlations, like 3.0000 hours aligns almost every time with a planned cost of $36.75, 4.0000 hours with $49. You see this matching trend, standardized process, or maybe just templated data entry. Either way, it's the kind of pattern that can make or break your analytics if you just blindly trust the data at face value. Production data is like plumbing. It's what you don't see that gets you into trouble.
Oh, and all those repeating dates, nulls, the tidy numbers, they're a call out to dig deeper, not just take the numbers to your next dashboard. There's almost always something under the hood, and honestly, those are where you find stuff to optimize, automate, or even just clean up.
And if you swing over to the purchasing schema, things are equally interesting, but in a different flavor. I noticed right away that the product vendor table is spiked with activity around August 2011. Those last receipt dates, even the modified dates, all bunch up right there. Same in purchase order header. There are all these clusters around March and October 2013, then January to June 2014. If you ever see a company's purchasing system do that, you have to ask, was there a big supplier campaign? Fiscal year closeout? Maybe just the annual clean up the open POs exercise. Here's one for the data nerds. Revision number and status in the purchase order header, both at 4, almost across the board. That really screams mature process or heavy automation, right? Like, if every record looks the same, someone either locked the process down hard or put in a workflow where change is rare. Maybe an audit thing, or it could be a sign that nobody's really updating these fields past a certain point. You always got to think about the intent. Are those values genuinely meaningful or just default autos? Now, the on-order acquired in-product vendor is sort of wild, majority no. That can mean the system isn't tracking outstanding orders for a ton of vendor product pairs, or those are just inactive, maybe decommissioned relationships. On the flip side, when it's not null, you get this repetition of specific order quantities like 300 popping up 34 times. Could be a minimum batch order, or just someone's favorite test value, but the fact it repeats is interesting. Look, when you see these patterns, lots of nulls, same revision and status everywhere, it's not necessarily bad, but it's a sign. Pause. Ask what the business process is actually doing. Are these fields defaulting to the same value because of automation? Is there a trigger that moves everything to status 4 and just leaves it? These are the places where AI analysis really needs that human context. Otherwise, you can misread what's normal and what's actually an anomaly. Sales schema. Now that's where things get really fun. You're staring at this massive credit card table, over 19,000 rows, and you think, all right, which card do people actually use? Well, Superior Card and Distinguish absolutely dominate, both breaking 4,800 entries. But here's the weird bit. Expiration years are clustered around 2006 and 2007. Feels old, right? That's just not what you'd expect for fresh customer records unless there's a retention or archiving policy quietly doing its thing in the background. Honestly, it makes me wonder if these cards are even valid anymore or just data that should have been archived out years ago. Another thing, if you comb through the sales order header, almost all the orders are at revision number 8 and have identical status, with like 27,000 out of 31,465 orders missing a purchase order number altogether. Never mind that, because it means most of these are likely one-off sales without a traditional PO, which could hint at a consumer-focused business model, or maybe just a quirk of how the data gets imported. Either way, it streamlines things, especially if you look at automation or bulk processing. Nothing slows down the pipeline if everyone's on the same revision. Speaking of bulk changes, this one cracks me up. Every single store record, all 701 of them, share exactly the same modified date, September 12, 2014, 11:15 a.m. I've seen this before when a company does a system-wide update or migration, and every record, even the untouched ones, gets a new timestamp. I remember this one time we updated an ERP system, and bam, every supplier's last modified went to the same midnight timestamp. It's not wrong, but it does remind you to be cautious using those modified date fields as evidence of granular activity. So, as we wrap up today, if there's one thing to take away from poking around Adventureworks2022, it's this. Always question the defaults, the patterns that are just a little too tidy, and of course, those sneaky missing values. Whether you're profiling sales, production, or purchasing, the devil and the opportunity is in the details. All right, that does it for this episode. Next time, we'll see what else these numbers might be hiding. Till then, keep sifting, keep questioning.